you're not going to lie? Or how do I trust anything anymore?
Well, I'm not sure that you can. So,
Eyes on Sam's neck, everybody, though, folks.
yep, there you
Might
go.
be your last chance for a while.
Yep. So, sorry.
I mean, you're going to have to work to regain our trust. I hope you understand that.
Well, that's why I'm making no promises about my caller status, because that way I'm managing expectations. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Here's Nancy Pelosi. Let's just start with this. I mean, I honestly don't know what to say. Joe Biden went to Europe. He has meetings with the G20, I believe it is, and then was heading to COP26, which is the climate change summit in Glasgow. He wanted to have a deal struck by then. Instead, there was the announcement of a framework for the reconciliation bill. There's some specifics, and we're going to be talking with David Dayen about those specifics in a moment. And then I imagine also with David Sirota. But and the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, wants the progressives today to vote for the bipartisan bill, and I don't think that's happening. And good. Here is Nancy Pelosi trying to put lipstick on a pig, as it were. I mean, I don't know how piggy this is or how much lipstick this is, frankly, but here it is.
All three of these, health, planet, child care, et cetera, are all about the children. They're also about jobs, how people access them, jobs that are created by the new green technologies, jobs that are part of the national security of our country, that is necessitated by our protection of the environment. And so it is an initiative that gives a big tax cut to the middle class, creates jobs, good-paying jobs, lowers costs for families, and while making the wealthiest and big corporations pay their fair share. That's really the framework that the president shared with us this morning, and it's remarkable. It's remarkable in that it's a big vision, bigger vision than we've seen in a very long time, maybe dating back to President Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal, in some respects to Lyndon Johnson, who had a great agenda as well. But we always remind everyone that Franklin Roosevelt had 319 Democrats in the Congress at the time, and we have 220, and that makes a big difference.
That was thank you for all those specifics. It's for the children and it's for the jobs. I believe the children are our future, and that's why jobs.
Well, I mean, nothing you just said was incorrect. I mean, they're going to try and, well, we'll talk to David Dayen about what's in the bill and by what metrics we can measure the bill, but by the own expectations that they set out. It has been a failure. There was a failure of leadership here, failure of understanding their own caucus, failure of strategy, failure to understand that there was no interest and no value in spending any time talking to Republicans. And so this is a well, I guess we will see. It's not over yet, so it's hard to say it is a failure per se. But yeah, let's just listen to Pelosi further on that press conference. This is clip number 2.
We had said for a long time now, if we had a framework that had our priorities spelled out clearly and agreed to, that added up to a top line, start with the priorities, and then added up to a top line, which was the limit. Priorities I mentioned, the top line, 1.75 approximately, and the commitment that we would have the same bill pass the House and the Senate. That's what we have now. That's what the president presented. And we won't have anything, regardless of whatever input we have in the bill, unless it is agreed to by the Senate. And of course, we have to have it comply with the Senate 51 vote rule of the Byrd rule and there are two things, the Byrd rule and the privilege scrub. Is that more on the subject than you ever want to know? But anyway, that's what we have to do. And we hope to do that soon. But we, again, have to listen.
Word salad. Yeah. Word gobbledygook.
I mean, the problem is that they thought they would have this resolved by now, and they clearly didn't. And, well, we will talk to David Dayen and get his perspective on maybe what progressives should do. Today, my understanding is that Pelosi was hoping to have a vote on the bipartisan bill. Was that right?
Well, she was hoping for that last night, and there was a full court press bid, including whip calls from the vice president. But progressives weren't going to budge. I mean, Manchin and Sinema have not come out and affirmatively said, "I'm endorsing this bill and I'm going to vote to pass it." And without at least that, there's no way that progressives can move forward. There's just not the kind of trust in among both ends of the caucus to allow that to happen. So they're going to wait until a bill is either voted on or there are clear on the record assurances from Manchin and Sinema that they're going to vote for it.
Is there any chance that progressives and to be honest, like I don't have a very clear sense of necessarily what's in the bipartisan bill, I have to say that, but it seems to be more meat and potatoes type of things that so-called moderates want to bring home, but and more highway spending, as it were. But is there a chance that progressives would it make sense for them to say at one point, like, oh yeah, and incidentally, we're not necessarily going to vote in favor of this bill even after we get them to sign on to the reconciliation? I mean,
they already gave up their leverage. They came out of their caucus meeting yesterday and said that there was overwhelming support for the bill, the framework in the caucus. Jayapal said she's for it. Ilhan Omar said she's for it. It's done. I mean, we're just talking about dates here, as far as I'm concerned. The one thing that might happen, I'm sure progressives would be happy to see this happen, but frontliners would be even happier to see it happen, is getting some sort of deal on something that could be called drug pricing reform. Pelosi is working pretty feverishly on that right now. This is something that as far back as 2006, Democrats ran on. In some cases, it was the primary thing they ran on. The Intercept has a piece up today saying, noting that in 2018, frontline members were told, if you're asked about healthcare, talk about lowering drug prices by having Medicare negotiate with prescription drug companies. If they don't get this, they're dead in the water if they don't get this. A lot of these frontline members relied on drug pricing reform as their main accomplishment. They're going to be in big trouble if they don't get it. And so there's an effort underway to try to make that happen. It's not going to be what was in the initial bill. It'll probably look something more like Scott Peters, who represents a district with a lot of pharma companies in it, which was negotiating prices, but only for drugs that are off patent, which is ridiculous, and a couple other measures. However, even that weaker reform could yield up to $200 billion or more over a 10-year period. And that money cannot go to deficit spending. If they get that money, that has to be put towards making pre-K and childcare permanent. There's no other responsible way to do this. Nobody's asking for anything in those measures to change, even though some things should. But you got to make them permanent. I mean, the way that you fix bills in Washington is you get permanent bills, and then over time they get fixed. Social Security, Medicare, the ACA. In this bill, there's a fix on the subsidy levels. Temporary bills do not get fixed because the fight on a temporary bill is whether to extend it. The fight is not on whether to change the policy. And so if we don't make some of these things permanent, what you see is what you get, and what you see is not good enough. That the drug price thing will create all this budget savings. It'll probably be totally eaten up by this repeal of the state local tax reduction cap.